Hello, 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 and welcome back to, oh man, here we go. A staple of the Rod Meta YouTube channel. We got the draft grades, man. The draft class we've been following for a year, more than a year in some cases. We know where they're going, right? I got my copious notes. Well, not that semi copious notes here. We're starting off with the NFC South. It's a tradition. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I got some friends who are Falcons fans. I like to get the video out for their team first. Um, I also live in Atlanta. Maybe that plays some part here. But man, the like I'm excited. I'm so hyped. I've waited so long for this. Here we go. NFC South 2025. Get it, man. Oh, let's go. All right. Starting off with the Carolina Panthers. Okay, Panthers. Terrible for a long time. Showed a lot of promise at the end of last season, and now finally it's looking like there's some light at the end of the tunnel for these diehard Panthers fans. Now, they made a lot of moves, spent a lot of money this offseason. I think that the offense that they've put around Bryce Young is pretty good. I like the offensive line. Their well, running back, they brought in Rico Dowdle. Wide receiver core is young, and defense splurged on that in free agency. So let's see if the Panthers completed what was already a very good offseason. Me oh my, look at what they did on day one and day two. The Panthers went out and got three of my top 50 players with pick 8, pick 51, and pick 77. That is an accomplishment in and of itself. All right. Number 8 overall, Panthers draft Teteroa McMillan. And honestly, for the first, I don't know, let's say the first 18 picks of the draft, it was very predictable. I mean, almost every pick, especially in the top 9, I would say, had been mocked before. Maybe not by me, the top 8 certainly by me. But I mean, it was not really any surprises. The trade was a shocker, number 2 overall, but I mean, the players still ended up in the same spot technically. So number 8 overall, Panthers select Teteroa McMillan. I am ecstatic. I'm not a Panthers fan, but I root for Bryce Young, and I want the Panthers to be successful because I think it would be more entertaining for the league. I was hoping the Panthers went out and got Bryce Young his weapon, his number one receiver, and that's what they did with this pick, man. Teteroa McMillan certainly is going to come in immediately, draw the defense's attention, be a major deep threat, get the ball in his hands, major catch radius, ridiculous, spectacular catch ability, yanks the ball out of the air. I mean, very few, less than 10% of corners even have the body type to go up and break up those contested catch balls with T Mac. So I'm happy for the Panthers. This is a great pick. Instantly becomes their number one receiver. I love it. Number 51, they draft Nick Scorton, edge rusher out of Texas A&M. I'm surprised. Well, not really. 51 seems like the bottom of the range a guy like Nick Scorton could go. So I guess he did slide technically, but Panthers waste no time. They scoop him up. Edge, certainly. I mean, honestly, if being honest here, the entire defense was a need for Carolina. Nick and Edge, certainly, I would say, was one of the biggest. Nick Scorton comes in, becomes a very versatile edge rusher that can line him up left or right side, and it's just great value. Number 51, you were probably expecting to get one of these really good edge rushers, but just because you picked them up doesn't make it any less of a good pick. So I like it a lot. They also trade up. They did move up 6 spots, so they were afraid of letting Nick Scorton slip away. So they moved up 6 spots and made sure they got their guy. I like that move a lot. Next up, they trade up again to number 77 to pick Princely Umanmi Allen. I'm kind of shocked he fell as far, to be honest with you. It had to happen to somebody, right? Well, multiple of the guys I had in my top 50 fell out of the second round entirely, especially the edge rushers. Well, 2 of the edge rushers at least. Princely, I guess people just thought he was an in-betweener. He is more of a pure DN, but he has the size of an outside linebacker. I don't see that as a problem. The Panthers, they clearly like what they see with him. They double dip at edge and get 2 of my top 50 players, 2 of my top 45 players, I think, even. So, and by the way, the colors, what they symbolize, a green would be, I think it's the best pick that a team made, yellow would be the steal of the draft. Certainly, I think Uman Mialan at 77 would be the Panthers' steal of the draft. So, Panthers, day one, day two, Panthers absolutely killed it. I don't know if we'll see another team with three picks on the same screen that all are at least an A. Panthers, the very first team we covered, might have had the best first three picks of any team. Well, we'll get to that a little bit later. They have some competition in their division. Moving on to what they did elsewhere. So Trevor Etienne at 114. I do have a problem with this pick. I gave it a C minus, as you can see. Fourth round for Trevor Etienne. Now, I'm not saying Etienne is bad, but out of the mix of running backs that went around this range and even a little bit later, I'm not sure I would have spent a fourth round pick on a running back here. I'm not sure I would have drafted a running back at all if I was the Panthers because you drafted Jonathan Brooks last year. I understand he tore his ACL again. Unfortunately, it looks like Jonathan Brooks, I'm not going to say his career is over, but when you're coming off of an ACL injury coming into the league, and then you tear it again rookie season, it unfortunately feels like Jonathan Brooks is never going to make it out of the gates as far as his NFL career is concerned. But the Panthers brought in Rico Dowdle through free agency, who had 1,300 yards last year in Dallas. So, I mean, I find it very hard to see a world where ETN contributes anything year one, and year two, that's when Jonathan Brooks comes back. So I don't like this pick. I would not have drafted a running back here. I would have liked to see a cornerback or something of that nature. Yeah, this is kind of an unnecessary offensive pick, in my opinion, when I think their defense has a few more holes that they could fill. Now, number 122, Lathan Ransom, Ohio State safety, played a big role in their championship team. I like this a lot. They brought in Trayvon Merrick through free agency, so maybe you could see Lathan Ransom play a little bit opposite to him. I don't know who else they even have at safety. Is it still Xavier Woods? Is he still back there? I'm not sure. Lathan Ransom, I like the pick though. Gave that a B plus, good value there. Number 140, Cam Jackson, defensive tackle out of Florida. He's a good run stuffer. I think if he does work his way to the starting lineup eventually, obviously, playing next to a Derek, what's his name? The D tackle that got hurt last year on the Panthers, Derek something. Derek Brown. Playing next to Derek Brown should make Cam Jackson's job a little bit easier, but I don't see a lot of pass rush ability with him, so I gave that a B. Solid pick, good pick, not a great pick. Number 163. Now, this is where they picked Mitchell Evans. Kind of surprised he fell all the way to the fifth round, but, is what it is. Panthers capitalized. Now they have a pretty interesting young tight end duo with Mitchell Evans and Jatavian Sanders. I think Mitchell Evans is a little bit of a better blocker than Sanders, so maybe, he could work his way on the field even a little bit more. So if they manage to get their future starting tight end in the fifth round, that's a major W here for Carolina. So I gave that a B plus, really slept on pick for them. And then 208, their final pick, they draft Jimmy Horn, wide receiver out of Colorado. Now he has some size issues. He's not like Tez Johnson levels, but he is certainly one of the smallest players in the draft. He's a really good special teamer. Put him on punt kick returns. I think he could make some magic happen. I'm not sure. I think he'll make the roster, right? But it's just he's up against it, right? They got a lot of receivers, a lot of young receivers. You know what I mean? So he's competing with guys like David Moore, for example, to be the Panthers' fifth receiver. So I don't think he'll get a lot of action like on the offense, but if he does his job on special teams, he might secure himself a roster spot. So not a very eventful pick. Yeah, I gave it a B minus. So as you can see now, we kind of this is the system I use, right, to grade the pick. So I gave every player a grade. That is the point value on the left, which that grade equates to. Here's the distribution of positions that the team drafted. You can see, obviously, Panthers invested heavily in their defense. I do think they made a little bit too many offensive picks. Like, for example, I would not have gone with Trevor Etienne or Jimmy Horn, for example. I would have stuck with the defense on both of those picks. But overall, Panthers, really good draft. B plus 6.0. Panthers fans should be very happy. By the way, combine this with what they did in the offseason. Panthers, they had the momentum, right? At the end of last season. Amazing offseason. I'm just saying, it feels like the Panthers are going, they're doing everything right now for like, what, 5, 6 months in a row. So the momentum is real. I can smell a little something cooking in Carolina. Don't know what it is yet, but it's something. Next up, Atlanta Falcons, still coming off this sickness, by the way. Falcons finally have a quarterback. And they had a quarterback last year, but clearly that didn't work. They have a quarterback who you can really commit to, I guess. The fans can invest in. They're saying, okay, we know Michael Penix is not going to be, you know, traded, released, cut, this, like that, benched. We know who the Falcons quarterback is, and that says a lot. They did not make any moves to change this offense. Their top three receivers, their tight end, and both their running backs are the same. The Falcons are going for continuity and chemistry moving forward offensively. I like that a lot. The Falcons, a lot of the moves they've made, especially this offseason and the draft, were focused on that defense. I love the strategy by Atlanta. Let's see how that played out via the draft. Oh man. So, first round, I think everybody can agree. The Falcons, if they didn't win the first round, they were certainly on the pedestal, right? Either first, second, or third place. So they stick in pick number 15, Jalen Walker. We expected this. Well, a lot of people predicted this, including myself, Jalen Walker. The only thing is, would they break the streak and actually draft a Georgia player? Well, they did. Jalen Walker was available. They took him. Obviously, he's a linebacker slash edge combination. He has versatility. You can line him up as a stand up linebacker. You can land him up as a Mike or a Sam linebacker. You can put him on the edge. You can blitz him from different areas. I love Jalen Walker's versatility. And if you are a creatively minded defensive coach, I think Jalen Walker provides so many avenues for you to explore and for you to exploit the opposing team, especially their offensive line. So I like that pick a lot. I give that an A. Obviously, we knew the goal for the Falcons was to improve their pass rush. It's one thing to theorize about that. It's another thing when you actually see that team put that plan into action. Number 26, the Falcons trade back into the first round with the Texans. No, Rams? I think it was the Rams. Trade back into the first round with the Rams. They give up their future first round pick. Here's the thing. I've heard a few people criticize this move because the Falcons gave up a future first round pick. Here's what I say about that. So, me personally, I had a mid first round grade on James Pierce. That's who they drafted, by the way, number 26 overall. I had a mid first round grade on James Pierce. I don't think anybody thinks the Falcons are going to do worse next year than they did the year before. That would mean they would have a pick in the mid teen or the late teens, sorry, or the early 20s. So you're telling me they gave up a mid to late first round pick for a player they clearly had a mid first round grade on? That sounds like a obvious. I mean, that's what they did. They spent a first round pick on a first round play. That's what they did. They gave up their second round pick in the process, but that's just the cost of trading up, right? So I don't. I think the trade makes perfect sense to me. I'm trying to explain to y'all why I see it that way. So I give this an A plus. A plus, I think, was their best pick of the draft. They saw a player sliding who they knew they wanted badly. They didn't just let it happen. They traded back into the first round, double dipped on pass rush, and I absolutely love it. They had a glaring need at on their defensive line, and they just turned one of their weaknesses into their strengths. Keep in mind, guys, they also brought in Leonard Floyd via free agency. He had about 10, he's had like 40 sacks over the last 4 years. Bring in Leonard Floyd. Also, they get Braylon Trice back, third round pick from last year. I believe he led the college football, at least he led the Pac 12 in pressures at Washington. They bring him back from injury. He didn't even play last season. So those are four guys the Falcons are adding to their pass rush rotation that they didn't have last year. I would I would not be surprised if the Falcons take the biggest jump in the NFL based just solely on like number of sacks. So keep an eye on that. Falcons defensive line is now scary. Number 96, what a pick this was. They take Xavier Watts. By the way, one of my top 50 players. I think I had him at like number 47 or something like that. I have no idea how he was available at the end of the third round. And I mean, brother, how ironic is it that his NFL comparison is Jesse Bates? And now he gets to play with and get mentored by Jesse Bates. The Falcons now have two elite ball hawking safeties in the back end. And you saw what Bullock kid did for Houston last year. He was a ball hawk for USC, comes in immediately. He had a bunch of interceptions last year for Houston. I see Xavier Watts doing the same thing. I think the Falcons now have the number one ball hawking safety duo in football. I think Watts is a day one starter, A plus pick, steal of their draft. I love it for the Falcons. I mean, three picks, right? Three picks, three day one defensive starters and potentially stars. I'm gonna be honest with you. It would not shock me if all three of Xavier Watts, Jalen Walker, James Pierce are Pro Bowlers in the future. They're all in my top 50 players. So yeah, Falcons and Panthers both absolutely nailed their first three picks. Falcons slightly more impressive in my opinion. Then number 118, they draft Billy Bowman Jr., a safety out of Oklahoma. Now, you may be wondering, why would they double dip back to back at safety? Well, Billy Bowman Jr., from what I have gathered, is a little bit more of a nickelback, has some of those capabilities. So you could actually see some packages where Billy Bowman Jr. and Xavier Watts are on the field at the same time. Now, just because the rest of the Falcons draft was so good, unfortunately, Billy Bowman, even though he was a good pick, is the worst pick of the Falcons draft. You know, everything is relative. So, yeah, I still like the pick. Don't get me wrong. I think the Falcons secondary certainly, once you address the pass rush, which they did, I think the next area to look would be their secondary. So they double dip on edge rushers, then double dip on safeties. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I like it actually. Then at number 218, they draft a Jack Nelson, offensive tackle from Wisconsin. From what I gathered, was rated much higher than the seventh round, which is where they drafted him. I saw a fifth round grade on Jack Nelson. Now, Jake Matthews is getting up there in age. I'm not saying he's going to be the Jake Matthews replacement, but I will never fault a team. Will never fault a team for drafting offensive linemen. That you can never take for granted having good offensive line depth, and I will not fault any team who took that, especially when you're trying to build around a young quarterback. So I give that a B plus for the Falcons. I like that pick. Really good seventh round pick by comparison to some other teams. So what we gathered here, heavy investment into the Falcons defense. Every pick but their seventh rounder was on the defensive side of the ball. And three impact players, three day one starters with their first three picks. So you can see the distribution here. Falcons with a 6.90. I did decide to round up for that. So an A grade. Uh, that might be the highest. I think the Eagles might have got an A plus for me last year. I'm not sure, but listen, some bold takes I'm throwing out here early. Falcons early winners so far. I mean, in this video, I'm gonna go ahead and spoil it for you. Falcons had the best draft in the NFC South, but yeah, overall, keep an eye on the Falcons when we're done with all this in a couple days, having the best draft total. By the way, with only 5 picks, quality over quantity in Atlanta. That's for sure. Next up, New Orleans. Yeah, I've said it before. I'll say it again. New Orleans is in a terrible position just with their franchise, right? First year head coach set up for failure because they kind of have a glass ceiling on the team. If everything went right for the Saints before the draft even came up, the Saints' absolute ceiling was like a 9-8, 10-7 team that gets bounced in the first round, right? It's like that nobody thinks the Saints are in a good position. They're in no man's land. They're not good enough to win a playoff game. They're not bad enough to get a number one overall pick and get a franchise changing quarterback. And what they did in this draft, oh man, Saints fans are not happy right now. Let's get into why. Now, with their number 9 overall pick, I like the decision. Kelvin Banks, I was for a long time, I was kind of under the assumption that one of these other guys, right, in the top 8 would drop, maybe a Tedero McMillan or a Will Campbell or somebody, right? And the Saints would be able to snatch that guy up. None of that happened. Everybody that I thought was going to go in the top 8 went in the top 8. So Saints had to draft the best of the rest. Kelvin Banks was their decision. I'm not mad at that. I had an early to mid first round grade on him. I think the Saints believe he'll be their starting left tackle for years to come. I love the pick. It was a good decision. No problems with that whatsoever. Number 40. Listen, the Saints drafted Tyler Shough. And since I'm talking in such extremes this entire video, it's fair to point out that Tyler Shough might very well be my lowest rated pick of the entire draft, right? I haven't really talked severely about the Shedeur Sanders situation. I'll probably make a video about him specifically when like my draft grades are done in a week. I might make a Shedeur Sanders video. But brother, I don't even think the Saints think that Tyler Shuck is better than Shadur Sanders. I just don't believe that. I don't think anybody believes that. Saints fans, I'll tell you what, Saints fans certainly don't believe that. But I don't think Tyler Shuck's better than Jalen Milroe. Like I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't see it. Right. I watched some Louisville games last year. Right. I never thought Tyler Shuck was terrible. You've seen, I'm sure you've seen some of the terrible, terrible lowlights from Tyler Shuck, but I don't. That doesn't define him. I don't think he's a terrible quarterback. I thought he was a good college quarterback. I never saw Tyler Shuck as an NFL prospect. Now, apparently, for some reason, he has been rising up the draft boards as of late. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he has that prototypical size and he's a really good athlete. But, brother, he's 26 years of age and he's injury prone. Say whatever you want about Shadur Sanders. You cannot question any off the field stuff. You can't question the injury stuff because there is none. You can't question his play, his football ability. He has no real red flags. Tyler Shuck has had what at least three season-ending injuries. Like he's played 7 years of college football, and I think he's only started like 2 years. That is not good. That's if the Saints drafted Tyler Shuck in the sixth round, I have a slight problem with it. Your 40th pick? Think of what the Saints could have done here. I haven't even gotten into that part of the discussion, right? Think of all the receivers who were available. Will Johnson, I think he was still on the board at this point. The Saints could have drafted some real Pro Bowl level players at this position that they desperately needed. And they drafted a guy, in my opinion, who is going to suck. Because you can't let the 26-year-old sit and develop. Tyler Shuck, believe it or not, he's the Saints starter next year. Because Derek Carr, his injury, Tyler Shuck's the starter. You don't draft a 26-year-old to sit him. So I think Tyler Shuck's going to go out there, stink it up. Honest, I don't think he's going to look much better than Spencer Rattler did. Honestly, and I think they're going to be in the exact same situation next year, except instead of drafting number 9, they might be drafting number 3 or number 4. So, yeah, honestly, terrible, terrible pick, in my opinion. One of the worst, maybe the worst of the entire draft. Now, moving on. Vernon Broughton, defensive tackle out of Texas. The Saints have been trying to find a defensive tackle to pair next to Brian Brzee. I think he's more than good enough, but for some reason, 13 sacks in 2 seasons as a defensive tackle. It's not good enough for some people, but I'm still a big fan of Brian Brzee. Vernon Broughton out of Texas. Slight reach, in my opinion. He is currently the fifth string defensive, well, the number 5 defensive tackle, if you will, on their depth chart, third string, I guess, technically. Third round pick on your number 5 D tackle is just not it's just not acceptable in my opinion. Not especially not when there were 9 players in my top 50 available when they drafted Vernon Broughton. I just back to back, not good picks, man. Not good picks by the Saints, in my opinion. Number 93, they draft Jonas Sanker out of Virginia. They have Tyrann Mathieu. They brought in, what's his name? Forget the name. Justin Reed, I think. They brought in another safety, 2 vets in there. So Jonas Sanker, I guess he's going to sit behind those 2 guys, step up if they have an injury. But yeah, backup safety with the third round pick. Again, not an area I necessarily would have picked as one of their positions of need. Here's what their best pick since Kelvin Banks right here. Danny Stutzman, linebacker out of Oklahoma, consistently praised, high football IQ, good tackler, really just a standout linebacker here. Good linebackers, they just fall if for some reason. Like Danny Stutzman, if he would have been a second round pick, it would not have shocked me at all. But he falls to the fourth round. Saints do a good job by snatching him up, and that's a B plus for me. Even though they have Mario Davis and what's his name, Pete Werner, I think Danny Stutzman might be starting by the end of the season. Next up, Quincy Riley out of Louisville. I gave that one a B plus. Apparently, this was a really good value pick. Like people didn't think he'd be available at this spot. So yeah, good pick there. By the way, keep in mind Saints lost what's his name? Paulson Adebo. They lost Paulson Adebo to the Giants, so they did need a cornerback replacement. So Quincy Riley, just like Danny Sussman, may become a starter by the end of the season. So pretty good back-to-back picks here from the Saints. Make it three in a row because Dustin Poirier announced the pick. That was Devin Neal out of Kansas. This is my steal of the draft for them because Devin Neal, everybody knew, right, that Devin Neal was going to be like a fifth or sixth round pick just because of how stacked the running back class is. But man, I really like Devin Neal, man. I just don't know what it is. I just like the way he runs. I think he's so solid. Um, and honestly, Kendre Miller has been pretty disappointing for the Saints since he's been there. So it would not shock me at all if Devin Neal locks up the number two running back spot by the time the season starts, and he just becomes a good partner to Alvin Kamara. Like if Devin Neal has 700 yards from scrimmage by the end of his rookie year, wouldn't shock me at all. So that is a great value pick to get in the sixth round. Now, a couple seventh round picks here. I actually thought both of them were pretty solid value here. Moliki Matavayo, tight end out of UCLA. I think the Saints do need to start looking for a future tight end that's not named Adam Troutman or Juwan Johnson. So Matavayo was like a fifth round grade on him, so they get him at the end of the seventh. That's a pretty good find there for the Saints, gave that one to be. And Fadil Diggs led the Syracuse Orange in sacks. Saints need an edge rusher. I'm surprised they waited this long to take one, especially considering all the good players that were available when they were drafting Tyler Shough and Vernon Broughton. But I gave them a B for at least trying to address their struggling edge position. So what we end up with are zero day one starters on defense, zero wide receivers. Even though the Saints, by the end of last season, had arguably the worst wide receiver core in football, don't worry, guys. They brought in Brandon Cooks. Everything is okay now. They did not draft a single wide receiver, but they have Tyler Shough. So, yeah, I'm not going to try and BS you guys. The Saints had a really bad draft. They drafted a couple sleepers on defense who could become good. I like the Devin Neal pick. Kelvin Banks was good. Outside of that, whole lot of nothing. I did not like what the Saints did, especially what they could have done, man. They don't even have to draft Shedeur, right? Let's just say they drafted Will Johnson at 40, Prince Newman Allen at 71. And all of a sudden you go from a B minus draft to a B plus or an A minus draft. Just such a oh man, what a difference that they could have made. But also, brother, just draft Shedeur. It's not even close between him and Tyler Shough. Major, major miss by the Saints. And Kellen Moore is already off to a rough start in New Orleans. Finally, wrapping up the NFC South draft grades, Buccaneers here. Buccaneers, very successful. The last two seasons, Baker has emerged as not just one of the most entertaining quarterbacks in football, but one of the best regular season stat sheet stuffers, the Buccaneers offense. The Buccaneers hit so well on their 2024 draft that they had a offense comprised of a lot of rookies. And they were balling out last season, especially Bucky Irving. Buck's offense is electric. I thought, like many other people thought, that this draft would be addressing a lot of their defense. And let's get into that. First of all, man, this is one of the I am maybe more conflicted about this pick than I am of any other pick in the entire draft. Because here's the strange thing, right? It is an objectively bad decision to spend a first round pick on a receiver when you have as strong a receiver room as the Buccaneers have. And I'll break that down in a second. However, I would bet you anything in the world Emeka Egbuka has multiple 1,000-yard seasons in Tampa Bay. I know that he is going to be successful here, right? That's not the question. The point is that the Buccaneers have such a good offense that any good receiver would be successful. Do you get what I'm saying? If they would have drafted, let's just say hypothetically, Ty Felton in the third round, I think he could have turned into a 1,000-yard receiver eventually. That's not the point. The point is that they didn't need a receiver. They don't need another receiver. Emeka Egbuka, believe me or not, is wide receiver 4 right now for the Buccaneers. You spent the number 19 overall pick on your number 4 wide receiver when you have glaring holes on your defense. And here's the thing. Some of you might not know this. They brought back Chris Godwin and paid him a lot of money. I think they paid him $60 million over 3 years. You still have Mike Evans, perennial Pro Bowl, 1,000-yard player. Jalen McMillan, some people think they're just going to kick McMillan to the curb to make room for Ibuka. Jalen McMillan had 8 touchdowns. You think they're just going to push aside 8 touchdowns for Ibuka? Ibuka is wide receiver 4 right now. I really, he's a great player, really a great player. I know he's going to be successful there. I mean, but I can also just vividly see a world where 2 years from now, Emeka Ibuka and Jalen McMillan just become the next Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, right? So I see that vision, but you could have got so many really good defensive players. However, pick number 53, by the way, this turquoise color means that it was their best pick and the steal of the draft for them, in my opinion. Benjamin Morrison has the best tape of any cornerback in this draft, bar none. He has some injury concerns, not as severe as a guy like Will Johnson or Chevelle Revel, for example. That's why he fell out of the first round. But man, I see Benjamin Morrison as a day one starter in Tampa, honestly, and he could be a real difference maker there. Honestly, I like the pick. I love the pick, and see this thing. Them getting a good corner with their second pick does make a Luka pick a little bit better, but still, man, it's a bad pick, man. Come on, you you have arguably the best receiver room in football. You don't need to spend a first round pick on a receiver at all. It is just mind boggling, right? It's like the Falcons drafted a running back, right? It makes no sense. So it's a great player. I think he'll be successful there, but it's a bad pick. I hope you guys understand that. Number 84 overall, they double dip on cornerback. I don't mind it at all. Jacob Parrish, he is consistently regarded as a second or third round talent. The Buccaneers find him here near the end of the third round. I think he'll be good. I think he'll be successful. A minus. A minus for me. The Buccaneers completely fixed their cornerback issue here with these two picks. Benjamin Morrison, Jacob Parrish. The Buccaneers no longer have a concern here at cornerback. Moving on. David Walker, edge player out of Central Arkansas. Now, here's an interesting thing. Fourth round here, there were some really good edge players available. For example, Jack Sawyer, Braden Swinson, and Kyle Kennard, all big names in the SEC, Big Ten, who were available at this point. But David Walker, FCS Defensive Player of the Year from Central Arkansas. So they're taking a shot, and I like it, right? They're taking a shot on a guy, did not get nearly enough as much coverage, but you're passing up on some established, well-known guys for someone who didn't even do it at the FBS level. So I like the risk here that the Bucs are taking. I gave it a B plus. 157, they did take a more big name, well-recognized guy, Elijah Roberts. Big reason why that SMU defense was so good for the last couple of years. I gave that a B. So double dip at cornerback, double dip at edge. I like it. Kind of surprised they didn't get a stand-up linebacker. I guess they're just going to cross that bridge when they get there, when Levante David retires next year. But really shocked that they didn't address linebacker at all. Also, I wonder if at 121, if they would have went with a guy like Jack Sawyer, for example, if David Walker would have still been there at 157. Who knows? Something I think about. Number 235, they draft Tez Johnson near the end of the seventh round. Honestly, what the NA means is if I think a guy is not going to make a team, like if I think a seventh rounder isn't going to make the team, like a lot of seventh rounders don't, I'm just not going to grade it. I'm going to put NA, swing and a miss, if you will. And listen, it's not. I like Tez Johnson. I was really hoping, he'd go to the Broncos with Troy Franklin and Bo Nix, and that'd be a story and whatever. But he's just too small, honestly, guys. It's dangerous. Can you imagine Nick Emenwari over the middle, just ripping Tez Johnson apart? Like, I understand it's not that exactly how that's going to happen, but it's like, and it has that. He's played college football at a high level, has not got snapped into, but it's like, it gets to a point where you're too small, right? Maybe Tez Johnson is just too small. And brother, Buccaneers, of all the positions you could draft in the seventh round, why on earth are we triple dipping at receiver? Because this is the thing. If everything works out for Tez Johnson, he's not even beating out Sterling Shepard for being wide receiver 5. He's not even beating out Trey Palmer for being wide receiver 6. If everything works out and Tez Johnson makes the roster, he's wide receiver 7. There's no way they're bringing on 7 receivers, right? So it's like, I just don't see a world where Tez Johnson makes the Buccaneers roster. So yeah, not going to grade that pick as a result. Here we can see two receivers, two defensive linemen, two cornerbacks. Those are the spread. 6.1. I give that a B plus. Really good draft. Really good draft. And honestly, depending on how you view the Igbuka pick, you could even have this a little bit higher, and I wouldn't blame you at all. So here's how we look. Well, actually, let's talk about the Buccaneers a little bit more. Um, Major defensively, I think they should be much better against the pass defensively. You got some rotational pass rush pieces, and you got two cornerbacks, day one starter and Benjamin Morrison, and a rotational future starter and Jacob Parrish. I think they should be much better against the pass next year. Buccaneers, please stop drafting receivers moving forward. And I thought that linebacker, like I said earlier, or some offensive line depth could have used some love here in this draft. So that's my thoughts on the Buccaneers. Overall, NFC South as a whole, here's how it stacks up, in my opinion. Falcons, far and away the best draft in the South. When it's all said and done, even though they only had 5 picks, might be one of the best drafts in the NFL. Panthers, here's the thing Panthers, Buccaneers, very close. The Panthers' first 3 picks were so good. That's why I decided to give them the edge over Buccaneers, even though Tampa had a slightly higher, per player grade, if you will. Also, I didn't grade the Tez Johnson pick, which would have been pretty poorly for the Buccaneers if I had graded. So that's my way of justifying it, if you will. Panthers slightly ahead of the Buccaneers, but if you like the Buka pick, I understand putting the Buccaneers above the Panthers. And then Saints, really bad draft. Really bad draft. Clearly the worst in the division. Um, might end up going down as one of the worst overall, mainly just because of the Tyler Shough pick. But I didn't like the defensive tackle out of Texas either at that spot. So that's gonna be it, man, for this video. We're here, man. Wow. The party is only getting started. 7 more of these to go. 7 more of these to go. I'm ready for it. I don't care. Let's get into it. So leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new. NFC North is the next one coming up. So be on the lookout for that. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.